My name is Hamid, and I want to tell you about the day I destroyed my career, or at least, that's what everyone thought I was doing. It was a Wednesday morning in March, unseasonably warm for Lahore, and I was sitting in my cramped cubicle on the fourth floor of Cascade Industries, staring at a spreadsheet that had kept me awake for 3 nights straight. I was 34 years old, had been working at this company for 9 years, and until that morning, I genuinely believed that hard work, punctuality, and loyalty were enough to build a successful career. I was about to learn that sometimes the most important quality isn't what you're willing to do, it's what you're willing to refuse. The fluorescent lights hummed above me as I scrolled through the quarterly financial report for what must have been the 100th time. The numbers told a clear story, but it wasn't a story anyone wanted to hear. Our latest product line was underperforming. Sales projections had been too optimistic. Customer satisfaction ratings were declining. These were facts, unambiguous and undeniable. But in the world of corporate presentations and investor meetings, facts sometimes become inconvenient obstacles rather than guiding principles. My phone buzzed. An internal message from my manager, Rashid Khan. "Come to my office. Now." The brevity felt ominous. Rashid wasn't the type to waste words, but he usually added at least a please or when you get a chance. This felt different. I saved my work, straightened my tie, a nervous habit I developed over the years, and made my way through the maze of cubicles toward his corner office. Rashid's office was everything mine wasn't. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a mahogany desk that probably cost more than my annual salary, leather chairs that whispered wealth and success. He was on the phone when I entered, but he gestured for me to sit. I waited, my hands folded in my lap, trying to read his expression. Rashid had always been professional with me, occasionally even complimentary about my work. We weren't friends. Corporate hierarchies don't really allow for that, but there was mutual respect. At least, I thought there was. He ended his call and swiveled to face me, his expression unreadable. "Hamid, how long have you been with us?" 9 years, sir. This October will be 10. He nodded slowly as if calculating something. 9 years of solid work. Never late, never a complaint, always reliable. You know why I called you in. I shook my head, though a knot was forming in my stomach. "The Morrison deal," he said, leaning back in his chair. "It's happening. The board met yesterday, and we're moving forward. It's the biggest contract this company has ever seen. $20 million over 3 years. Do you understand what that means?" I understood. Morrison Enterprises was an international conglomerate, the kind of client that could transform a mid-sized company like ours into a major player. Landing them had been the company's holy grail for 2 years. "That's incredible news, sir." "It is," he agreed, but his tone didn't match the words. "But there's a complication. Morrison's leadership wants certain assurances about our financial stability and growth trajectory. They need to present our partnership to their shareholders, and shareholders respond to specific metrics." He slid a folder across the desk toward me. I opened it to find my own quarterly report, but with handwritten notes in red ink covering nearly every page. Arrows pointing to numbers, question marks, suggestions for adjusted figures. My throat went dry. "What you're looking at," Rashid continued, his voice calm and businesslike, "are some minor modifications that will help present our company in the best possible light. Nothing dishonest. Just framing the data in a way that emphasizes our strengths and contextualizes our challenges. It's standard practice in these situations." I stared at the red ink, my mind racing. The modifications weren't minor. They involved inflating sales figures by reclassifying returns as pending orders, hiding customer complaints by excluding certain feedback categories, and projecting growth rates that had no basis in our actual performance trends. These weren't contextualizations, they were fabrications. "Sir, these numbers, they're not accurate. If Morrison makes decisions based on this data, they'll sign with us," Rashid interrupted, his voice taking on a harder edge. "Hamid, let me be frank with you. This is how business works at this level. Everyone adjusts their presentations. Everyone emphasizes the positive. If we show them raw, unpolished data, we look incompetent. We look like we don't understand how to position ourselves. And they'll walk away. Is that what you want? I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, and someone was asking me to jump while promising there was water below, water I couldn't see, couldn't verify, could only take on faith. What about when they discover the real numbers? When the projections don't materialize? Rashid smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. By then, we'll have their money and 12 months to course correct. We bring in Morrison. We use that cash injection to actually achieve the numbers we're projecting now. It's not lying, Hamid. It's believing in our future. It's confidence. The rationalization sounded almost reasonable when he said it that way. Almost. But I kept thinking about the specifics in that folder. The exact numbers that would need to be changed. The signatures that would validate those changes. My signature. I need you to finalize this revised report by tomorrow morning, Rashid said, standing up, a clear signal that the meeting was ending. The board presentation is Friday, and Morrison's team arrives Monday. This is important, Hamid, more important than any project you've worked on. And between you and me, he lowered his voice conspiratorially. There's going to be a restructuring after this deal closes. New positions, significant promotions. The people who make this happen will be remembered, rewarded. The promise hung in the air between us like bait on a hook. 9 years I've been working towards something like this. 9 years of arriving early and leaving late, of missing family dinners and weekend gatherings because I was committed to building career. My wife Sana and I had postponed having children because we were waiting for my career to stabilize, for that elusive promotion that would provide real financial security. And now it was right there, within reach, contingent only on my willingness to adjust some numbers on a report. I took the folder. I'll review it. Good man, Rashid said, clapping me on the shoulder. I knew I could count on you. I walked back to my cubicle in a daze, the folder feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. My colleague Ahmed looked up as I passed. Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Fine. I managed. Just a big project. That night, I couldn't eat dinner. Sana knew immediately that something was wrong. After 8 years of marriage, she could read me like a book, but I didn't know how to explain it. How do you tell your wife that your integrity is being priced, and you're not sure it's worth as much as you thought? We sat on our small balcony after dinner, looking out at the Lahore skyline glittering in the distance. You've been quiet all evening, she said gently. What happened? I told her everything. The Morrison deal, the modified report, the promise of promotion. I expected her to help me rationalize it, to tell me that sometimes we have to compromise, that this was how the professional world worked. Instead, she was quiet for a long moment. What would your father say? She asked finally. The question hit me like a physical blow. My father, Allah rest his soul, had passed away 6 years earlier. He'd been a school teacher his entire life, never earning much but respected by everyone who knew him. One of my last conversations with him played in my mind with sudden clarity. I'd been complaining about a colleague who'd gotten promoted by taking credit for someone else's work, and my father had listened patiently before saying, Son, when your honesty is tested, your real value appears. Not your salary, not your title. Your value as a human being. That's the only currency that matters in the end. I'd nodded at the time, thinking it was nice philosophy but impractical for the real world. Now, sitting on that balcony with my wife, I realized he'd been preparing me for exactly this moment. He'd tell me not to do it, I said quietly. Sana took my hand. Then you already know your answer. But knowing and doing are different things. That night, I barely slept. I kept running scenarios in my mind. What if Rashid was right? What if this was standard practice and I was being naive? What if refusing meant not just losing the promotion, but losing my job entirely? How would we manage financially? What would people think? That I was self-righteous? Impractical? Foolish? By morning, I'd made my decision, but my hands were shaking as I got dressed for work. Sana made me breakfast, eggs and parda, my favorite, and didn't ask if I was sure. She trusted me to know my own mind, which somehow made it harder and easier at the same time. I arrived at the office early, before most of my colleagues. The folder sat on my desk where I'd left it, unopened since yesterday. I picked it up and walked directly to Rashid's office. His assistant hadn't arrived yet, so I knocked directly on his door. "Come in." He looked up from his computer, surprised to see me. "Hamid, you're early. Is the report ready?" I placed a folder on his desk, unopened. "Sir, I can't do this." The words came out quieter than I'd intended, but they were clear. Rashid stared at me for a moment, then laughed, a short, disbelieving bark. "You can't do what? Finish a report?" "Hamid, this isn't optional. This is your assignment." "I understand that, sir, but I can't falsify data. These modifications aren't just optimistic framing, they're fabrications. If Morrison makes decisions based on these numbers and they're not accurate, it's fraud. I won't put my name on that." The amusement vanished from Rashid's face. "Do you understand what you're saying? Do you understand what you're throwing away?" "I think I do, sir." "No, you clearly don't." He stood up, his voice rising. "This is business, Hamid. This is how deals get done. This is how companies survive and grow. You think everyone out there is playing by some idealistic rule book? They're not. They're doing whatever it takes to win. And if we don't do the same, we lose. It's that simple." "Maybe," I said, my voice still quiet but steady. "But I was hired to work, not to lie. If this is what it takes to advance here, then I'd rather not advance." Rashid's expression shifted from anger to something else. Disappointment, maybe, or contempt. "You're being incredibly naive. Do you know how many people would kill for this opportunity? How many qualified candidates we could bring in who would understand how business actually works? Then maybe you should bring one of them in, sir, because I can't be that person." The silence that followed felt eternal. Finally, Rashid sat back down and opened a drawer in his desk. He pulled out a form. I recognized it as a resignation template. "If you can't follow directives, then I don't see how we can continue your employment. Submit this by end of day." I took the form. My hands weren't shaking anymore. "I'll have it to HR before lunch." Walking out his office, I felt strangely calm. The fear and anxiety that had plagued me all night had evaporated, replaced by something I can only describe as clarity. I'd made my choice, and whatever consequences followed, at least they'd be built on truth. The news spread through the office within hours. In a company of 200 people, secrets don't last long. By mid-morning, colleagues were stopping by my cubicle with mixed reactions. Some looked at me with barely concealed pity, as if I'd just been diagnosed with a terminal illness. Others seemed confused, unable to comprehend why anyone would voluntarily give up a career opportunity. Ahmed pulled me aside during lunch break. "Bye, what are you doing? Do you have another job lined up?" "No." "Then why? Why throw everything away? You have a wife to think about. Responsibilities." "I know," I said, "but I also have to live with myself." He shook his head, unconvinced. "This is corporate suicide. Everyone compromises sometimes. It's just how things work." Maybe he was right. Maybe I was being impractical, idealistic to the point of self-destruction. But I kept remembering my father's words, and I kept thinking about what kind of person I wanted to be. Not what kind of career I wanted to have, but what kind of person. I submitted my resignation at 2 p.m. HR processed it quickly, almost eagerly, as if they were afraid I might change my mind. My last day would be 2 weeks from then, standard notice period. I spent those 2 weeks completing my ongoing projects and documenting everything for whoever would replace me. Some colleagues avoided me, as if career failure might be contagious. Others confided quietly that they admired what I'd done, though they could never do it themselves. The hardest part was going home each evening and seeing the worry in Sanaa's eyes that she tried to hide. We had savings, but not much. Maybe 3 months of expenses, if we were careful. I started applying for jobs immediately, but the market was slow, and my abrupt resignation raised questions in interviews. "Why did you leave your previous position?" they'd ask, and I'd struggle to explain without either lying or bad-mouthing my former employer. It was a matter of professional ethics, sounded evasive. They asked me to falsify data, sounded like sour grapes or troublemaking. I was learning that integrity sometimes leaves you without a good elevator pitch. By my last day at Cascade Industries, I'd had no solid job offers. A few interviews scheduled, but nothing concrete. I packed up my cubicle. 9 years of accumulated papers, photos, coffee mugs, and it all fit into 2 cardboard boxes. 9 years of my life, 2 boxes of belongings, and an uncertain future. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have doubts. The Morrison deal closed 3 weeks after I left. I heard about it through Ahmed, who called to tell me the news. They signed yesterday. Huge celebration at the office. Rashid gave a speech about vision and teamwork. They brought in someone from accounting to do the revised report. Didn't seem to bother him at all. I felt a strange hollowness hearing that. Part of me had hoped, irrationally I knew, that without my cooperation, the deal would fall through, vindicating my stand. Instead, life just went on. They'd found someone willing to do what I wouldn't. And everyone was celebrating. Maybe Ahmed had been right. Maybe I'd sacrificed myself for nothing. Sanaa found me sitting on the balcony that evening, staring at nothing. She didn't say anything, just sat beside me and took my hand. We stayed like that until the call to prayer echoed across the city, a reminder of realities beyond corporate deals and career advancement. The next month was the hardest of my life. I sent out 50 applications and got 12 responses, mostly rejections, a few that led to interviews that went nowhere. Our savings dwindled. I started looking at jobs below my experience level, willing to take a step back just to have income again. Sanaa never complained, never said, "I told you so," or questioned my decision, but I could see the stress taking its toll. Then, 3 months after leaving Cascade Industries, everything changed. I was at a cafe, halfway through a dispiriting job interview with a recruiter who'd clearly already decided I wasn't a good fit, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I normally wouldn't have answered, but I was so desperate for any opportunity that I excused myself and picked up. "Mr. Aslam, this is Jennifer Cole from Morrison Enterprises. We need to speak with you urgently." My first thought was that this was somehow related to a falsified report, that I was about to be implicated in the fraud I'd refused to participate in. "What is this regarding? Are you aware of the recent news about Cascade Industries?" I wasn't. I deliberately avoided following news about my former employer. It was too painful. "No, I'm not. The contract we signed with them has been terminated. An internal investigation revealed systematic data falsification in their financial reporting. Several executives have been removed, and we're conducting a full audit of all information they provided. Mr. Aslam, your name came up in our investigation." My heart stopped. I don't understand. Our due diligence team interviewed several Cascade employees. Your name was mentioned multiple times as someone who'd raised concerns about data accuracy. We also discovered that you resigned shortly before the contract was finalized. We'd like to speak with you about what you know. The meeting happened 2 days later at a hotel conference room downtown. Jennifer Cole was there with 2 other Morrison executives and their legal counsel. I told them everything. The meeting with Rashid, the modified report, my refusal and subsequent resignation. I expected them to be angry, but instead they seemed almost relieved. "Mr. Aslam," Jennifer said after I'd finished, "we're in a very difficult position. We've invested significant resources into this partnership based on fraudulent information. We need to rebuild our entire strategy, and frankly, we need people we can trust. People who've demonstrated they value truth over convenience." One of the other executives, a man named David Chun, leaned forward. "We've been reviewing your work history. 9 years of strong performance reviews, consistent project delivery, and apparently, you're one of the few people at Cascade who is willing to prioritize accuracy over politics. How would you feel about consulting for us? We need someone to conduct an independent audit of Cascade's actual financial situation, help us determine what's salvageable and what isn't." I couldn't quite process what I was hearing. "You wanted to work for you?" "On a contract basis initially," Jennifer clarified. 6 months, with a possibility of extension or permanent placement, depending on how things develop. The pay would be significantly higher than your previous position, and you'd be working directly with our executive team. I signed the contract 2 days later. The irony wasn't lost on me. Refusing to compromise my integrity had cost me my job, but that same refusal had ultimately created an opportunity one never could have imagined. The consulting work led to a permanent position as Morrison's Director of Ethics and Compliance, a role they created specifically for me. But more importantly, it led to something else. 8 months after leaving Cascade Industries, I founded my own firm, Integrity Solutions. We specialize in ethical compliance consulting for companies that want to ensure their operations and reporting meet the highest standards of accuracy and transparency. It's a niche market, but it turns out there are more companies than I expected who value honest assessment over comfortable lies. We're small, just me and 4 employees so far, but we're growing. Our clients include some of the companies I once dreamed of working for. And every contract we sign reinforces something I learned that day in Rashid's office. Your reputation isn't built on what you're willing to do. It's built on what you're willing to refuse. Last month, I got an unexpected email. It was from Rashid Khan. He'd been let go from Cascade Industries as part of the fallout from the Morrison scandal and was looking for work. I know we didn't part on good terms, he wrote, but I've learned a lot over the past year. I was wondering if you might have any opportunities at your firm, or if you could put in a good word with your network. I stared at that email for a long time. Part of me felt vindicated. Proof that the shortcut he'd pressured me to take had led nowhere good. But I also remember what my father used to say about compassion being stronger than judgment. I replied, offering to have coffee. No promises, but willing to talk. Because integrity isn't just about grand gestures and dramatic refusals. It's about how you treat people when you have the power they once had over you. Today, when I sit in my office, not as grand as Rashid's was, but honest, I sometimes think about that moment of decision. What if I'd gone along with it? What if I'd told myself it was just business? Just one small compromise. I'd probably still be at Cascade Industries, maybe even promoted by now, but I'd also be constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering when the truth would catch up. Instead, I sleep well at night. My company isn't the biggest or the richest, but every client we have trusts us completely. And that trust, that reputation built on thousands of small choices to tell the truth even when it's inconvenient, that's worth more than any promotion I might have gotten by compromising. Sanaa and I talk sometimes about how different our lives could have been if I'd made a different choice that day. We could have more savings, maybe a bigger house, but we also wouldn't have what we have now. A business built on principles we believe in, relationships built on trust, and the certainty that when our children ask us about integrity someday, we'll be able to answer not just with words, but with the evidence of how we've actually lived. Because here's what I learned. Saying no is the most powerful decision you'll ever make. Not saying no to opportunity, but saying no to the compromises that would corrupt that opportunity. Everyone will tell you that success requires sacrifice, and they're right, but they rarely specify what you're supposed to sacrifice. Some people sacrifice their time, their comfort, their immediate pleasure. Others sacrifice their principles, their honesty, their sense of self. The real question isn't whether you're willing to sacrifice. It's what you're willing to sacrifice. And once you're clear on that, once you know what you won't compromise no matter the cost, then every decision becomes simpler. Not easier, but simpler. That Wednesday morning in March when I walked into Rashid's office, I thought I was facing a career decision. I thought I was weighing a promotion against some abstract principle. But I was actually deciding who I wanted to be, not just at work, but in every aspect of my life. I was deciding what kind of example I wanted to set, what kind of person I wanted to see when I looked in the mirror. And that decision, that simple word, no, changed everything. Because real success isn't measured by titles or salaries or corner offices. It's measured by whether you can live with the person you become in pursuit of those things. It's measured by whether the path you took to get where you are is one you'd be proud to walk again. Sometimes the hardest roads lead to the best destinations. Sometimes refusing to take a shortcut is the only way to arrive at where you actually want to be. And sometimes saying no is the first step to saying yes to the life you're meant to live. Be honest, even when no one's watching. That's how real success begins. That's how you become story-wise.